I think my job at Vogue is also curatorial in a sense. We have the whole great wide world of fashion and style out there, and we're curating it for our readers.
I was obviously very honoured to have been chosen by Oscar to come and work in New York. What Oscar had really wanted is for us to work together. Unfortunately, with Oscar's death, everything got fast-forwarded.
The double meaning of I am expensive is that we cost a lot on the earth. I don't come cheap.
I'm Paula Wallace, and I have the best job. In the time since I established the Savannah College of Art and Design, the university flourished into more than 40,000 students and alumni with unparalleled access to the world's most creative minds. Now I'm sharing with you On Creativity, conversations with my favorite visionaries in art and design. Fashion is a wearable art form from the runways of Paris and Milan to the streets of New York and Savannah. As every front row authority knows, fashion is a synthesis of craftsmanship and creativity, and the results are truly breathtaking. To celebrate the art of fashion, I spoke to 3 industry titans. Hamish Bowles, the international editor-at-large of Vogue magazine, whose renowned vintage collection calls upon his encyclopedic knowledge of 19th and 20th century fashion. And Peter Copping, creative director for Oscar de la Renta, who has been entrusted with carrying the storied brand forward into a new era. And Dame Vivienne Westwood, along with her husband, Andreas Kronthaler, whose runway and home collections are a perfect distillation of their pioneering attitude toward life. Welcome to my world. Welcome to On Creativity.
Hamish Bowles is the international editor-at-large at Vogue magazine. For more than 2 decades, he's reigned as the ultimate tastemaker on interiors, fashion, and museum-quality vintage couture. A range of talents distilled perfectly through the lens of his dashing personal style. On a recent visit to SCAD, Hamish discussed his most enduring influences in the quest for a well-curated life.
Hamish, thank you so much for coming and spending time with our students.
I adore the city and I love what you're doing here, and it's great to meet the students.
Oh, thank you.
I'm very excited.
What would be your job description, would you say?
My job description? Oh, crikey. Well, it's quite broad at this point. So I came to Vogue in '92. At that point, I was the fashion and style director of Harper's and Queen magazine in London, and I was overseeing all the fashion content of the magazine. And Anna brought me to Vogue really to replace the interiors editor, but because I'd come with a fashion background, I was bringing that to the role of really writing about interiors and houses and environments. So I was certainly very excited about the concept of working with Anna, who
She's amazing.
Well, she seemed such a mythical figure, and I just thought, you know, I might not last the month, but let's give it a go.
Let's talk about your celebrated vintage clothing collection.
I've been collecting since I was a little boy. I began collecting costume items that I could afford with my weekly stipend, which was 50 pence, 10 shillings, I think, even when I first started. And then I started to become interested in contemporary fashion and started looking at British Vogue, which was very exciting then. There were very exciting designers, so that sort of turned me onto the island. Then I thought maybe I should collect fashion history.
Do you ever hang some of your collection, your fashion collection, in
I don't
your
really.
spaces?
I
You have to spend a little time
I
loving
have to have a
them.
little time looking at them, yes. And then they go into storage, and then I look at them when I get a request from a museum or something. You know, when the Met did China Through the Looking Glass, and they said, do you have anything that could fit the bill? I realised
That fabulous golden dragon.
Yes, yes. I'd actually almost forgotten about that dress, and I thought there's something.
It was so...
I know I have something. It's by Caillou, and it's about 1922, 23. They were excited to get that because the embroidery is marvellous, and it's really copied from an imperial dragon robe. So that was great. And then I had one of Carl's Coromandel screen dresses and some pieces from Tom Ford's last collection for Saint Laurent, which was all Chinese-inspired. And I have Dries Van Noten Chinese pieces from a very recent collection. So, yes, and it's really exciting being given a sort of challenge like that and really thinking, God, what have I got that could fit that bill?
How would you compare your role as a curator or a collector to your job at Vogue?
Well, I think my job at Vogue is also curatorial in a sense. We have the whole great wide world of fashion and style out there, and we're, in a way, curating it for our readers. So we're selecting the most significant fashion pieces. They could be significant because they're fiscally achievable, you know, or they could be significant because it's a new silhouette that is going to redefine the season, or a new trend, a new way to think about putting pieces together, a new designer's new philosophy for clothing. I think I'm so lucky to work alongside these amazingly talented fashion editors who have an amazing combined history and incredibly discriminating taste, very, very, very different tastes. And I think they're each bringing something different to their pages and thus to the magazine and to the reader.
You're such a wonderful writer, and I heard you're working on a memoir. What advice would you give to our writing students?
I think be curious, be open to everything. The more experiences you can have, the better. Travel most emphatically does broaden the mind. Stay curious, stay informed, and find your voice.
Well, I love talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, the elegance of Oscar de la Renta reimagined for a modern woman.
I want the Oscar de la Renta woman to be very varied. I think she's an international woman, and that can encompass so many things.
And the queen of punk, Dame Vivienne Westwood, shares her secret for success.
If you say me, you're not going to get there. It's by losing yourself that you will discover yourself.
How well do you know vintage clothing trends? Vintage is considered anything over 30 years old. So let's take a look at some of the most influential fashion statements from the last century. Haute couture, defined as custom-fitted clothing, took hold in the early 1900s, when long skirts and puffy sleeves were the definition of elegance. World War I and the flappers of the 1920s brought beads and beautiful fabrics into vogue. By the 30s, Parisian couture included beautiful ball gowns and, in stores, a fully feminine form emerged in casual clothing. By the 40s, World War II brought a definite pragmatism into fashion. Women went to work in record numbers, dressed in smart suits made from durable fabrics in unassuming hues of blue, black, and brown. But they still managed to find ways to add punches of color. During the 50s, rock and roll ushered in a new attitude, and with the youth-focused society came capri pants, poodle skirts, and halters. In the 60s, two of the most influential fashion icons emerged. Model Twiggy with her colorful miniskirts, only to be outdone by the style setting of Jacqueline Kennedy. This decade also brought patterns of polka dots, paisleys, and stripes. In the 70s, music and fashion collided, and the male leisure suit joined the women's pantsuit as a fashion staple. Music's influence continued into the 80s, with an emphasis on neon, mix and match, and big accessories that influence designers even today. Throughout history, fashion styles of the past have inspired modern designers, making vintage clothing a living scrapbook of history, art, and culture. As one of the most popular designers in the 20th century, Oscar de la Renta was known for his timeless elegance and grace, qualities that describe his collections as well as the designer himself. Before Oscar's death in 2014, he appointed Peter Copping as creative director, calling him a great talent and entrusting him to oversee the next chapter in his namesake brand's history. Copping recently attended the SCAD Museum of Art to view the first posthumous exhibition of Oscar's work, curated by Andre Leon Talley, and shared an exclusive look at some of the first pieces produced under his leadership of the House of de la Renta.
Peter, thank you so much for being here with us at
You're
SCAD
welcome.
today. Thank you so much for coming for the exhibition in Savannah.
Yes,
And
that's
that will
very
be-
exciting.
What were your thoughts as you glanced at each detail, and you really kind of soaked up the history of the house.
It was a fantastic experience. Just seeing all of the clothes and how they were presented together really made me learn a lot about who Oscar was and the work that he'd done, because I saw the exhibition after I presented the first collection, and I was proud to see when I was there there was some definite parallels. So I think looking at the exhibition and then considering what I'd presented, I thought, yes, I think it seems like I'm on the right track.
Can you think of any vignette or any look that you saw in the exhibition that kind of sticks out in your mind?
I particularly liked some of the opera coats, because I think...
With the big sleeves, yes.
Yeah, I loved the drama of them. I think Oscar was very much a designer who embraced big gestures. And those I found very exciting to see.
So you've assumed the mantle of his legacy,
Yes.
which you honor, but yet you're also having your own ideas about what to go forward with. So tell us about your first few collections and where you're going from here.
I was obviously very honored to have been chosen by Oscar to come and work in New York. What Oscar had really wanted is for us to work together, which was something that would have been really very exciting, just to get to know him, to learn about him, and then take over at the house. Unfortunately, with Oscar's death, that wasn't how it happened, so everything got fast-forwarded a little bit.
Much more on your shoulders.
I arrived in November and we showed the collection in February, so 3 months. I just hit the ground running, and I think somehow being a Brit and just taking things in your stride stood me in good stead.
Your celebrity clients range from Taylor Swift to Barbara Walters. How do you dress, and who is the Oscar de la Renta woman?
I want the Oscar de la Renta woman to be very varied. I think she's an international woman, and that can encompass so many things. Oscar was always a very feminine brand, and I think that is something that has mass appeal, whether it's for women in Asia, Europe, or the States. And I think it's also a brand that we can touch and cover different age groups. We can have things in the collection that appeal to a really broad range of women.
And Emma Stone just was getting a lot of press about a black lace dress at Cannes that many people were saying is her best look ever.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I think she always dresses very well. She looks great on the red carpet. And I think this is actually an older piece from the collection, which she'd had for a number of seasons and never worn. So she really chose the perfect place to wear it. So, you know, even Oscar's legacy still lives on.
Well, let's look at some of your garments.
Yes.
Peter, would you tell me about this absolutely gorgeous cocktail dress?
Yeah, with pleasure. I'm so happy that this is one of the pieces that is here today, because for me, it was really one of the standout dresses in the collection, and I don't want to show off. When I saw it happen, I thought, wow, that's really quite good. And I was really, really pleased with that. Because you can see it's actually formed from lots of bands of organza. So
meticulous.
It was a case of really making the fabric ourselves. So each band was then twisted and held down to give texture, and then with the jet beading on top of the bands.
Well, let's look at this gorgeous gown. Wow.
So flowers was something that was so important to Oscar. And he had a beautiful garden in Connecticut full of roses. So I wanted to take a rose motif and work around that. And then the mix of fabrics, chiffons, laces, organza with jet beading. I liked it to be very, very, very graphic. So I thought it would work well in black and white. And especially it would be a way that you would really feel all of the different textures.
Peter, thank you so much for being here with me today and for talking about these beautiful gowns.
It's always a pleasure. I'm very happy to come. I was so happy to be here in Atlanta, and hopefully it won't be the last time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Luxury designer brands usually bring to mind supermodels gliding down the runway in trend-setting styles. But some of fashion's biggest icons expanded early on into home fashions, including furniture and decor. Which of these famous names was first to launch a home furnishings line? Was it A, Gianni Versace, B, Ralph Lauren, C, Calvin Klein? The correct answer is B, Ralph Lauren. Coming almost a full decade before Versace and Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren was the first American designer to create a complete collection for the home, and the brand has since evolved to encompass many more facets of interior design that reflect the taste of its core consumers. Another designer who made an indelible mark in the fashion world is Dame Vivienne Westwood. Dubbed the Queen of Punk, her controversial style has emblazoned the fashion world for more than 4 decades. Westwood's early designs defined deconstruction. Her looks became iconic. Accessorized with outlandish makeup and hair, she's been heralded as one of the top designers in the world for her signature rebellious punk style. This legendary designer is also a passionate activist, having devoted her life to bringing forth awareness and change through her popular website, Climate Revolution. Dame Vivienne Westwood recently visited SCAD for the annual fashion show and to celebrate the opening of the Vivienne Westwood installation at the SCAD Museum of Art.
I began not as a fashion designer. I began as a punk. And the whole idea was that the world was so mismanaged and terrible that somehow young people would not accept this, and we were going to do something about it. And we didn't.
With her creative director, business partner, and devoted husband of 22 years, Andreas Kronthaler, by her side, Dame Westwood sat down with Paula to take a look back at how it all began.
With your family history of shoemaking and cotton mills, do you think that that has influenced your attraction to fashion?
I think 2 things. I think my father was very, very good with his hands, and I think I must have got it from him.
Your mother too.
And my mother also was sewing and everything, and we lived in a village, and I remember her making clothes for the pantomime, you know, and for in the church pantomime. We were always knitting and patching and making things. Everybody did do that. And I'm really glad that I did live then. When I began, I was just making things, and my only criterion was I've got to like it. It wasn't, will it sell? You do have a sixth sense. You know when you've done something that you know you're excited by, and you think other people will like it. So I've been lucky. I knew that it was culture. You've got to get down that road. You're not going to kick the door of the establishment. You just go further on and let them catch you up. The ideas are there before they get to you, you know? And so that's the attitude I took. But our maxim actually is, buy less, choose well, make it last. And I want to say as well that it is a good business. It's a human business, and it's quite organic in itself because it's got lots of skill. It's very labour intensive. It's not stuff just stamped out. And so hopefully it's got the character and the love and the design that communicates to people, and when they wear it, then it's there. You know, they express themselves through something that we love and that looks different on them because they can express themselves through it.
And you believe in sending a message and using mottos and through fashion. What are some of your favorite slogans?
Maybe my favorite one is or was, I'm expensive.
The double meaning of I am expensive is that we are terribly spoilt and privileged, and we cost a lot on the earth. I don't come cheap.
But you're rare in the world of fashion that you actually encourage people to rip up your clothes and remake them.
I actually think if you have a sweater with some holes in it, it's a really worn-out tweed suit, if it's a nice
it has a
jacket,
personality.
in the first place, it becomes interesting. It just sets you off. It's an historic fact, actually, because people in the past, their clothes were sometimes so well made or so valuable, they cut them up and reused them again.
My grandmother did. Yes.
Queen Elizabeth did.
That's why we don't have historically seen very little left from older
Take
ages.
the lace off, take everything off.
Because it really was reused till it actually disintegrated, because textiles, do that really, actually. So that's why sometimes you only have, a few jackets left from Elizabethan times and so on.
In Elizabethan times, wouldn't your sleeves be as you're wearing them, where they would be unlaced and taken off?
Yeah. I mean, these are arm warmers, which were very
warmers.
popular in the 19th century, and probably a little bit in rustic areas in the 40s,
Yes.
when people wore short sleeves,
love
this
what you have
dirndl feeling, and you need to keep your arms warm.
You're known for being unconventional. Is there something that people would be surprised about that is truly conventional about you?
People get confused because I'm a firm believer in tradition, and so is Andreas. We've definitely got that in common.
Is there a moment in your career where you knew that you were successful?
There was a long time when I thought to myself, time is on my side, because I was not taken up by the English fashion establishment, except just at the beginning for the first burst, 2 years probably, and then I wasn't an interesting story anymore. You needed to sign up with a big producer or something, and I don't know. I honestly think that was too far ahead, and I was not the pet of these journalists who like to discover people. I think I was down the road already. But apart from which, it was very difficult because I didn't have the manufacturing base and all this stuff,
But I think, and that's I would say to the students as well, it is when you really believe in something and you really like it, and it might be not such a success firsthand, you should stick to it and keep
follow your heart.
Go for it, and eventually it will establish itself. I've experienced that many times over, and I think you have to have this stamina or this passion or belief. It's essential to when you do, especially I think when you do a creative job or profession, whatever you call it.
You can't just do it half-heartedly.
No, you can't. And if it's not 100% success first round, and you want it, go for it. Go keep at it.
Yeah.
If you believe in it.
If you believe in it, it'll eventually get you somewhere.
If you say me, you're not going to get there. It's by losing yourself that you will discover yourself. That's it. And you will just, if you follow your deep interest, you will become yourself, because you will fulfill your potential.
Thank you so much for joining me here today and being here at SCAD.
Thank you for having us.
Loved talking to you.
Thanks for watching On Creativity, an ongoing series of Paula Wallace's conversations with industry pioneers in the world of film, television, fashion, design, and beyond. To learn more about SCAD or to share your thoughts on creativity, follow Paula on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.